Hollywood spent decades sanitizing the American West, turning brutal frontier reality into family entertainment, where good guys wore white hats and blood never stained the dirt. But some filmmakers refused to play along, creating westerns so violent, so graphic, so morally disturbing that studios tried to bury them. Censors demanded cuts, and audiences walked out in disgust. These are the films that showed the West as it actually was, savage and unforgiving. Number 15, Django, 1966. Sergio Corbucci's Italian Western introduced a level of sadism to the genre that shocked even European audiences accustomed to violent cinema. Franco Nero plays Django, a mysterious gunfighter dragging a coffin through muddy landscapes while caught between Mexican revolutionaries and racist clan, like vigilantes. The film's violence isn't just frequent, it's creative in its cruelty. The opening sequence shows a woman beaten and whipped by bandits. Then Django arrives and methodically guns them down in extended carnage. But here's what made censors panic. The film features an extended torture sequence where bandits cut off a man's ear and force him to eat it while Django watches helplessly. This wasn't implied violence or quick cuts. Corbucci holds the camera on the mutilation, making audiences confront the horror. British censors banned the film entirely until 1993, keeping it out of UK theaters for 27 years. American distributors wouldn't touch it, so it circulated through exploitation houses and grindhouse theaters where explicit content was expected. The famous finale, where Django's hands are crushed by horses so he can't use guns, shows the aftermath in graphic detail. Nero's mangled fingers pressing the trigger guard against a cemetery cross to fire his weapon became iconic precisely because it visualized permanent damage rather than temporary setback. The film spawned over 30 unofficial sequels, none matching the original's willingness to show violence without heroic glamour. Corbucci argued he was depicting frontier reality where men were maimed, tortured, and killed without dignity or purpose. Critics called it sadistic exploitation. The truth is, both interpretations hold. Django uses graphic violence to make points about racism and exploitation, but it also revels in that violence, creating uncomfortable complicity between message and spectacle. The film's mud-soaked aesthetics, where everything looks diseased and rotting, amplified the sense that we're watching civilizations collapse into barbarism. Number 14, Bone Tomahawk, 2015.
Sheriff, wake up!
S. Craig Zahler's Horror. Western contains one of the most graphically brutal death scenes in cinema history, a sequence so extreme that audiences fled theaters and streaming viewers turned it off in disgust. Kurt Russell leads a rescue party into cannibal territory to save kidnapped settlers. The film builds slowly, establishing characters and relationships before unleashing violence so shocking it recontextualizes everything preceding it. The infamous scene shows cannibals strip a man naked, suspend him upside down, then split him in half lengthwise starting from the groin using a tomahawk. Zahler films this in one unbroken take with practical effects, showing every detail. No cutaways, no mercy for the audience. The victim's screams and the wet sounds of tearing flesh created a sensory assault that many viewers couldn't endure. Critics debated whether this crossed from legitimate horror into torture porn. Zahler defended it as a historically accurate portrayal of documented frontier atrocities. Native American groups protested that the film perpetuated savage Indian stereotypes. Though Zahler clarified, the cannibals aren't meant to represent any actual tribe, but rather a fictional prehistoric offshoot. RLJ Entertainment distributed the film direct to video and streaming, knowing no major studio would release something this extreme theatrically. The lack of theatrical release meant it avoided MPAA rating, allowing Zahler complete freedom regarding graphic content. Beyond the split man scene, the film contains numerous brutal deaths, including arrows through eyes, scalpings, and dismemberment, all shown with unflinching practical effects. What makes it more disturbing than typical horror is the realistic tone. This isn't stylized fantasy violence. Characters are ordinary men facing extinction, level threat, and their deaths feel genuinely tragic rather than entertaining. The film's defenders argue this seriousness of purpose elevates it above exploitation, forcing audiences to confront mortality and helplessness. Detractors counter that realistic tone makes the graphic violence more irresponsible, potentially traumatizing viewers who expected traditional Western action. Number 13. Cut. Throats 9, 1972.
You sure make me ashamed to have you along. His teeth, you should check his teeth first.
Joaquin Luis Romero. Marchant Spanish Western achieves such relentless brutality that it makes Peckinpah look restrained. The plot follows a sergeant escorting 7 condemned prisoners through snow-covered mountains when they murder the other guards and take control. What follows is 90 minutes of savage violence as prisoners torture each other and innocent victims while the sergeant hunts them. The film was shot in actual blizzard conditions in the Spanish Pyrenees, subjecting cast and crew to genuine suffering visible in every frame. Actors weren't performing cold and misery, they were experiencing it. This authenticity bleeds through, making the violence feel documentary rather than staged. The opening features a prisoner gutting a guard with a knife, the camera lingering on intestines spilling into snow. Later sequences show graphic dismemberment, a woman dragged behind horses until dead, faces smashed with rocks, and a climactic scene where the sergeant uses a wagon wheel as torture device, breaking a prisoner's body while the man screams. European censors demanded extensive cuts before allowing release. The British version lost over 12 minutes of violence. American distributors refused it entirely. The film vanished into obscurity, rediscovered decades later by extreme cinema enthusiasts. Marchant claimed he wanted to show frontier justice's reality, where punishment was public, brutal, and meant to terrorize potential criminals. The film's complete absence of heroism or redemption separates it from traditional Westerns. Every character is either victim or victimizer, often both, and the narrative offers no moral center or perspective to provide comfort. The sergeant hunting the prisoners isn't a hero. He's a damaged man, whose methods become indistinguishable from those he pursues. The snow setting, unusual for Westerns, amplifies the bleakness. Blood on white snow is more shocking than blood on brown dirt, and the freezing conditions add hypothermia and frostbite to the catalog of sufferings inflicted. Number 12. The Great Silence, 1968. Sergio Corbucci's nihilistic masterpiece earned its shocking reputation not through explicit gore, but through its utterly bleak ending, where evil triumphs completely. Klaus Kinski plays a bounty hunter legally hunting outlaws during an economic depression, while John, Louis Trintignant's mute gunfighter, tries to protect them. The film's violence throughout is substantial, with realistic shootings and suffering, but the finale devastated audiences. Trintignant's hero dies along with all the outlaws he protected. The villain wins, collects his blood money, and faces no consequences. Good is defeated, evil prospers, and the snow falls on corpses while society continues unchanged. 20th Century Fox demanded Corbucci shoot a happy ending where the hero survives and kills the villain. Corbucci complied, but ensured his bleak ending was the only version released in Europe. American audiences never saw the film theatrically because distributors knew the ending would kill box office. The film's graphic elements extend beyond the finale. Early sequences show starving families freezing to death, bounty hunters casually murdering unarmed men for profit, and the systematic economic violence of a system designed to convert poverty into corpses. The scene where Kinski burns Trintignant's hands, destroying his ability to shoot, is filmed with clinical precision, showing blistering flesh. But what truly shocked audiences was the moral universe. Traditional Westerns, even violent ones, maintain cosmic justice where good eventually prevails. The Great Silence eliminates that comfort, showing a world where power determines outcomes and morality is irrelevant. Ennio Morricone's mournful score amplifies the tragedy, turning each death into a requiem for lost innocence. The film remained virtually unknown in America until home video made it accessible in the 1990s. Its influence on subsequent nihilistic Westerns from Unforgiven to No Country for Old Men is profound. though few matched Corbucci's courage in denying audiences any redemptive closure or hope. Number 11. Soldier Blue, 1970. Ralph Nelson's revisionist Western attempted to depict the Sand Creek Massacre with historical accuracy, creating one of the most disturbing sequences in mainstream American cinema. The film follows cavalry survivors traveling through hostile territory, building to a finale recreating the 1864 massacre, where Colorado militia attacked a peaceful Cheyenne village, murdering over 150 people, mostly women and children. Nelson films the massacre in graphic detail, showing soldiers shooting children, smashing infants against rocks, mutilating pregnant women, and severing body parts as trophies. The violence is explicit, sustained, and designed to horrify. Nelson intended this as anti-Vietnam War statement, using frontier atrocity to comment on contemporary American violence. The parallel was obvious to 1970 audiences, and many found it exploitative rather than enlightening. Critics accused Nelson of using real historical tragedy as exploitation spectacle. Candice Bergen, the film's star, later expressed regret about participating in such graphic content. Avco Embassy released the film during peak Vietnam controversy, marketing it as shocking exposé of American genocide. The MPAA gave it an X rating for violence, later changed to R after cuts. Even trimmed, the massacre sequence retained enough graphic content to traumatize viewers. European releases included even more extreme footage that American censors rejected. The British version showed explicit breast mutilation and genital violence that US audiences never saw. The film's defenders argued that sanitizing the Sand Creek Massacre dishonored victims by minimizing their suffering. Graphic depiction forced audiences to confront what their government actually did to indigenous people. Critics countered that Nelson's camera work, using slow motion and dramatic music during the violence, aestheticized atrocity into entertainment. The debate continues, with some viewing Soldier Blue as necessary historical corrective and others as irresponsible exploitation, trading on real suffering for ticket sales. Number 10. A Man Called Horse, 1970. Elliot Silverstein's Survival. Western shocked audiences with its graphic depiction of the Sundance Ceremony, a Lakota religious ritual involving ritual suspension by hooks through chest muscles. Richard Harris plays an English aristocrat captured by Lakota Sioux, who must prove himself through increasingly brutal trials. The film's early torture sequences, where Harris is treated as property and beaten regularly, established a new level of sustained suffering for Hollywood Westerns. But the Sundance sequence became notorious. Harris volunteers for the ritual to gain acceptance. The ceremony involves wooden skewers pierced through his pectoral muscles, attached to ropes connected to a central pole. He must dance and pull against the skewers until his flesh tears free, demonstrating spiritual strength through endurance of physical agony. Silverstein filmed this, using actual hooks, piercing a prosthetic chest piece, so realistic that many viewers believed Harris was genuinely pierced. The sequence runs nearly 10 minutes of Harris screaming, blood running down his torso, his body weight suspended by the hooks as he struggles. Some theaters posted warnings, others had nurses on staff for fainting patrons. National General Pictures marketed the shock value, ensuring maximum publicity around the controversial ceremony. Native American groups divided on the film. Some praised its attempt at cultural authenticity and refusal to sanitize indigenous practices. Others condemned showing sacred ceremony to entertainment audiences and protested the film used Lakota ceremony for Shoshone character, mixing tribal practices inaccurately. The MPAA debated between R and X ratings, ultimately granting R despite the extreme content, because the violence served cultural rather than exploitative purpose. The film's success, earning over $10 million, led to 2 sequels with escalating violence. Modern critics recognize A Man Called Horse as problematic white savior narrative, where European must master indigenous culture better than the indigenous themselves, but its graphic depiction of physical suffering remains genuinely shocking. Number 9. Ulzana's Raid, 1972.
Если умрет вождь, умрет город.
Robert Aldrich's brutal Western depicts Apache warfare with unflinching realism, showing atrocities committed by both sides without moral simplification. Burt Lancaster plays a veteran scout tracking renegade Apache leader Ulzana, whose warriors rape, torture, and mutilate settlers across Arizona. The film's violence isn't frequent, but when it occurs, Aldrich shoots it with documentary clarity. An early sequence shows Ulzana's men gang, raping a settler woman, then burning her alive while forcing her husband to watch before mutilating him. This happens largely off-screen, but the aftermath, showing charred remains and the husband's castrated corpse, was too graphic for many censors. The film's politics complicated its reception. Aldrich shows Apache violence as response to generations of American genocide and forced relocation. Ulzana isn't a monster, but a warrior using terror tactics because conventional warfare against superior forces is suicide. The cavalry hunting him commits comparable atrocities, creating moral equivalence that 1970 two audiences found disturbing. Universal Pictures barely promoted the film, uncomfortable with its Vietnam War parallels, and refusal to designate clear heroes and villains. The script, by Alan Sharp, includes extended discussions of violence's psychology, with Lancaster explaining that Ulzana tortures victims because his spiritual beliefs require him to. This cultural context doesn't excuse the atrocities, but complicates simple condemnation. The film asks whether violence committed for religious or cultural reasons differs morally from violence committed for political or economic reasons. Several sequences were cut before release. The original edit included more graphic depictions of mutilation and sexual violence that test audiences found unbearable. Even trimmed, the film earned criticism for excessive brutality. Aldrich defended it as a historically accurate portrayal of frontier warfare, where both sides committed atrocities and civilian suffering was catastrophic. The film's final message, that violence creates cycles of revenge impossible to escape, felt defeatist to audiences wanting clear moral victories. Number 8, The Revenant, 2015. Alejandro Gonzalez. Iñárritu's survival epic contains the most graphically realistic bear attack ever filmed, a sequence so visceral that audiences gasped and covered their eyes. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Hugh Glass, mauled by a grizzly protecting cubs. The attack runs over 5 minutes of sustained brutality, using CGI bear and practical effects for Glass's injuries. The bear throws DiCaprio's character, bites his neck and back, claws his torso, and repeatedly slams him against trees and ground. The camera never cuts away. We see every impact, every bite, every moment of helpless terror as Glass tries futilely to fight back. The practical makeup showing torn flesh, exposed bone, and massive blood loss was so realistic that several viewers vomited or fainted during screenings. But the attack is just the beginning. The film's second half depicts Glass's 200-mile crawl to civilization while severely wounded. We watch him set his own broken leg, cauterize wounds with gunpowder, sleep inside a horse carcass for warmth, and eat raw meat scavenged from wolf kills. Each survival tactic is shown in graphic detail that makes viewers experience the physical suffering. DiCaprio's method performance, including eating raw bison liver and enduring freezing Canadian locations, adds authenticity that amplifies the horror. The film's climactic fight between Glass and his betrayer takes place in a freezing river, both men stabbing and choking each other while hypothermic. The violence is brutal, graceless, desperate. When Glass finally wins, he's too exhausted to feel triumph, collapsing in the snow, barely alive. 20th Century Fox marketed the ordeal, emphasizing the production's extreme difficulty and DiCaprio's suffering to earn his first Academy Award. The strategy worked, with the film grossing over $530 million worldwide. But many viewers felt traumatized rather than entertained, the realistic violence and suffering creating genuine distress rather than cathartic release. Number 7, Dead Man, 1995.
Thank you very much, sir.
Jim Jarmusch's surreal Western features graphic violence rendered more disturbing through its matter-of-fact presentation and existential context. Johnny Depp plays William Blake, a mild accountant who accidentally kills a man and flees into the wilderness with a bullet lodged near his heart, slowly dying while hunted by bounty killers. The violence throughout is sudden, graphic, and stripped of heroic context. The opening murder shows Depp shooting a man in the chest at close range, blood spraying across white pillows in stark contrast. Later, Blake shoots men in the face, the camera holding on exit wounds and shattered skulls without flinching. What made this shocking wasn't just the explicit gore, but the philosophical framework. Blake's guide, played by Gary Farmer, believes Blake is the reincarnated poet William Blake, transforming the violent journey into a spiritual death ritual. This mixing of graphic violence with mystical poetry created tonal dissonance that left audiences unsettled. The bounty hunters pursuing Blake are presented as grotesque monsters. One is a cannibal who kills and eats his companions. Their deaths are filmed with dark humor that makes the violence absurdist rather than tragic. A man gets his head blown apart by a shotgun while making casual conversation. Another gets shot in the gut and spends minutes dying while trying to staunch bleeding intestines. Miramax released the film in limited art house distribution. Knowing its slow pacing, black and white cinematography, and graphic violence made it unmarketable to mainstream audiences. Critics divided sharply. Some called it a masterpiece examining American violence through Native American spiritual lens. Others found it pretentious and exploitative, using indigenous mysticism to justify sadistic violence. The Neil Young guitar score, improvised while watching rough footage, creates droning atmosphere that makes the violence feel inevitable and meaningless. Deadman asks whether violence can be redemptive, or if it only destroys everyone it touches. The film's ambiguous answer, that Blake achieves spiritual transformation through killing, but loses his humanity in the process, offered no comfort to audiences expecting clear moral lessons. Number 6. The Wild Bunch, 1969. Sam Peckinpah's masterpiece revolutionized cinematic violence using slow motion and multiple cameras to show every bullet's impact with unprecedented detail. The opening massacre, where the bunch's robbery goes catastrophically wrong, features civilians killed in crossfire, including women and children trampled by horses. Peckinpah cuts between extreme slow motion and normal speed, creating rhythmic violence that's simultaneously beautiful and horrifying. Blood spurts in slow-motion arcs. Bodies jerk and spasm as multiple bullets hit. The sequence ran over 7 minutes in the original cut, an eternity of sustained carnage. Warner Brothers demanded extensive cuts, horrified by the violence. Even trimmed, the released version shocked audiences. The finale, where the bunch attack a Mexican general's army, used 6 cameras at different speeds to create 4 minutes of pure massacre. Peckinpah shot 4,520 individual setups over 12 days. The editing took 3 months. The result was balletic slaughter that forced audiences to see every death, every wound, eliminating the sanitized, bloodless violence traditional Westerns used. Critics called it irresponsible and sadistic. Peckinpah argued he was showing violence truthfully to destroy romantic myths that make real violence possible. The debate continues. The film's anti-violence message requires showing violence so graphically that some viewers missed the critique and simply enjoyed the spectacle. Peckinpah created a paradox where condemning violence requires depicting it so compellingly that audiences might celebrate what they're supposed to reject. The squib work, using explosive charges attached to actors to simulate bullet impacts, was revolutionary. Each squib contained fake blood that sprayed outward, creating visceral reality. Previous westerns showed men clutching chests and falling. Peckinpah showed bodies destroyed by ballistics, flesh torn and blood flowing. This clinical attention to trauma's physical reality changed action cinema permanently, every subsequent violent film operating in Peckinpah's shadow. Number 5. The Proposition, 2005. John Hillcoat's Australian Western depicts frontier brutality with an unflinching eye that makes American Westerns look sanitized. Guy Pearce plays an outlaw forced to hunt, and kill his psychotic older brother to save his younger brother from hanging. The film's violence is frequent, graphic, and devoid of heroic context. An early flogging sequence shows a man whipped until his back is raw meat, the camera refusing to cut away as flesh tears and blood pools. Later, the psychotic brothers gang attacks a family on Christmas, raping and murdering them in extended sequence that feels endless. The aftermath, showing mutilated corpses and blood, soaked rooms, was too extreme for many distributors. The film's depiction of colonial violence in Australia parallels American Western violence, showing how British settlers used terror to control indigenous populations and eliminate criminal elements. Ray Winstone's Captain represents civilization through barbarism, ordering torture and execution while maintaining proper Victorian decorum. This hypocrisy, where savage violence is committed by men who consider themselves civilized, makes the film more disturbing than straightforward exploitation. First, Look Pictures gave the film minimal theatrical release in America, recognizing its unmarketable darkness. The MPAA threatened an NC-17 rating before agreeing to R after minor trims. The Australian release included even more graphic content that American censors rejected. Danny Huston plays the psychotic brother, Arthur, with feral intensity, his character representing pure ID, unconstrained by civilization or conscience. His violence isn't calculated or purposeful. It's spontaneous expression of rage and madness that destroys everything nearby. The film's conclusion, where Pierce must kill his brother despite loving him, offers no catharsis. Arthur dies brutally, and the younger brother hangs anyway, because the captain needs to demonstrate authority. Everyone loses, evil triumphs, and the cycle of violence continues. Nick Cave's script and score emphasize spiritual desolation, suggesting the frontier doesn't just kill bodies, but destroys souls. Number 4. Hostiles, 2017.
You just ain't hearing me.
Scott Cooper's brutal Western opens with a massacre so graphic that many viewers couldn't continue watching. Comanches attack a frontier family, killing the father and children, while the mother, played by Rosamund Pike, hides. The violence isn't stylized or quick. We watch a baby shot, children scalped, and the father tortured, all filmed with documentary realism. Pike's screams as she discovers her family's bodies created genuine distress in audiences who expected traditional Western action. The film refuses to sanitize frontier violence committed by any side. Later, white soldiers execute native prisoners with equal brutality. A hanging scene shows the victim strangling slowly, the camera holding on his face as he suffocates. This even-handed depiction of atrocity, showing all sides capable of monstrous violence, prevented audiences from finding comfort in partisan identification. Christian Bale plays a cavalry captain, escorting a dying Cheyenne chief home, forced to confront his own history of killing native people. The journey becomes psychological horror, as his certainties about civilization versus savagery collapse. A sequence where they discover a woman who's been captive for years, driven insane by abuse, suggests frontier violence's permanent psychological damage. Entertainment studios distributed the film in limited release, knowing the uncompromising violence and bleak tone would limit commercial appeal. The film earned strong reviews but minimal box office, audiences unwilling to endure such sustained brutality. Cooper argued he was depicting historical reality, where settlers and indigenous peoples committed comparable atrocities and moral certainty was impossible. Critics countered that graphic violence without clear moral framework risks glorifying the very brutality it claims to critique. The debate mirrors larger arguments about whether realistic violence serves truth or merely traumatizes audiences for dubious artistic purpose. The film's final message, that violence destroys everyone it touches and no one emerges morally clean, felt more like punishment than insight to viewers expecting heroic narratives or redemptive conclusions. Number 3. Apocalypto, 2006. Mel Gibson's Mayan epic, while not technically a Western, follows Western genre conventions while depicting prey, Colombian, violence with extreme graphic detail. The film follows a peaceful villager whose community is destroyed by raiders who take survivors to be sacrificed at a Mayan city. The opening hunt sequence shows a tapir killed with spears, blood, and viscera shown in detail. Later, the village raid features extended brutal violence, including clubbings, stabbings, and women raped while children watch. The captive's journey to the city shows widespread human suffering, including plague victims and environmental destruction. But the sacrifice sequence became notorious. Victims are painted blue, led up pyramid steps, and held down while priests cut open their chests and rip out beating hearts, holding them aloft before decapitating the bodies and throwing them down the pyramid steps. Gibson films this using practical effects, showing realistic chest wounds and spurting blood. The camera doesn't flinch as heads are severed and bodies tumble hundreds of feet, smashing against stone steps. Multiple victims die this way, creating sustained horror. Touchstone Pictures, Disney's adult label, distributed the film after Disney executives screened it and were horrified by the violence. The MPAA gave it an R rating, despite content that would typically earn NC-17, possibly because the historical and cultural context provided justification. The film earned over $120 million, proving audiences would accept extreme violence if packaged as historical epic. Critics attacked Gibson for sensationalizing Mayan culture and perpetuating savage stereotypes. Mayan scholars protested the inaccurate depiction of their civilization as uniformly brutal. Gibson defended the violence as historically accurate portrayal of human sacrifice practices documented by Spanish conquistadors. The debate obscured that Apocalypto functions as chase thriller, using extreme violence for visceral thrills, the historical setting providing cover for gore that would be unacceptable in contemporary contexts. Number 2. Cannibal the Musical, 1993.
You ain't Southern boy!
Trey Parker's debut film uses Western conventions to tell the true story of Alfred Packer, who allegedly resorted to cannibalism in the Colorado mountains during winter of 1873. While largely comedic, the film contains surprisingly graphic violence that contrasts jarringly with the musical numbers. The climactic sequence shows Packer killing and eating his companions with practical effects, displaying dismemberment, disembowelment, and cannibalism in detail. Blood sprays across snow as Packer hacks apart bodies, removes organs, and roasts human flesh over campfires. The juxtaposition of upbeat songs with graphic murder creates disturbing tonal whiplash. What makes this shocking isn't just the violence, but the historical reality behind it. Packer was convicted of murder and cannibalism in real life. Parker uses the true story as framework for absurdist comedy, but the underlying horror remains. The musical numbers about snowmen and friendship dissolve into genuine carnage that some viewers found unwatchable. Trauma Entertainment distributed the film, their specialization in extreme content allowing Parker creative freedom impossible at major studios. The ultra-low budget meant practical effects were crude but effective, fake blood and rubber organs creating grand guignol atmosphere. The film's cult following appreciated Parker's willingness to mix sincere musical theater with transgressive violence, creating hybrid genre that shouldn't work but does through sheer audacity. Critics noted that Parker's later work on South Park demonstrated similar willingness to juxtapose innocent forms with extreme content, using animation instead of live action, but maintaining the strategy of subverting expectations through shock. Cannibal the Musical remains difficult to categorize, too violent to be pure comedy, but too absurd to be serious horror. That ambiguity makes it more disturbing than straightforward gore. Audiences never certain whether they should laugh or be horrified, often experiencing both reactions simultaneously. Number 1. The Burrowers, 2008. J.T. Petty's horror western takes the top spot for combining extreme violence with genuinely disturbing creature effects and nihilistic ending. The film follows frontier settlers hunting what they believe are Native American raiders kidnapping women. They discover the truth is worse. subterranean creatures that paralyze victims and bury them alive to slowly digest. The creature reveal shows a woman unearthed, still conscious but unable to move, while digestive enzymes dissolve her from within. The practical effects showing her partially liquefied face and body created one of the most disturbing images in horror Western cinema. Later sequences show more victims in various stages of digestion, some still aware and suffering. The film's violence extends beyond creature attacks. Cavalry soldiers massacre a Native American village, believing they're responsible for the kidnappings. This sequence, showing women and children murdered by soldiers who realize too late they've killed innocents, parallels real historical atrocities. The combination of monster horror and historical genocide creates unique dread. Dark Sky Films distributed the film direct-to-video, knowing theatrical release was impossible given the extreme content and bleak tone. The ending, where the military decides to exterminate the creatures by poisoning the ground, inadvertently creates the Dust Bowl decades later, suggests American expansion's long-term costs. This environmental horror twist, combining creature feature with ecological disaster, elevates the film beyond simple monster movie. What makes The Burrowers most shocking is its complete rejection of heroic narrative. The protagonists fail to save most victims. The cavalry commits atrocity. The creatures aren't defeated, but driven deeper underground. Evil triumphs, innocents suffer, and the cycle continues. This nihilism, combined with genuinely disturbing imagery of paralyzed victims being slowly digested alive, created an experience many viewers found unwatchable. The film's obscurity means most Western fans have never encountered it, keeping it a secret horror that those who've seen it warn others about. So, there you have it, 15 Westerns that refuse to sanitize frontier violence, forcing audiences to confront brutal realities Hollywood preferred to ignore. These films prove the West wasn't won through heroism and honor, but through blood, suffering, and moral compromise that continues haunting American mythology.